What's going on guys, Mark Fox here, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a review of the MacBook Pro 13-inch 2017 model. So when you're purchasing a new MacBook Pro 13-inch, you have an option between a regular keyboard or one with a touch bar. The one that I've chosen is the one without the touch bar, and the reason for that is because I just don't see a real use case for it. I know Apple has displayed it with the likes of Final Cut Pro and Photoshop, both softwares that I do use, but I just don't see or kind of know how it would help my workflow, you know, how I could get faster results out of using this touch bar. So until then, I'm gonna stick with the regular keyboard. And I know I say regular keyboard, but this isn't a regular keyboard. This is an Apple-made butterfly keyboard. And what do I mean by that? Basically, in your traditional keys, they kind of slant to the left or right. They don't really kind of have a general direction, and there's a bit of depth to them. But with Apple's new butterfly keyboard, they basically bounce downwards like this, kind of in a butterfly motion. The one that's in the MacBook Pro is actually the second generation of it. The first generation is present in the current MacBook lineup. Now, what do I think of this new keyboard? To be honest, I really like it, and there's two reasons behind that. The first reason is because the keys are slightly bigger, so you have a bit more of an accurate typing experience, but also because the keys are a bit lower, so they're low profile, you don't find yourself, you know, knocking off keys as you're moving from one to the other. I know these both seem like kind of minute little tiny details, but that's what actually makes the difference. If you're somebody that's moving from a different laptop to the new MacBook Pro, I think the learning curve in regards to the keyboard is going to be so small you will barely even notice it. Initially, when you start typing it, you might feel it, but after that you really will understand the benefits of the new keyboard. I know I've been talking about the keyboard a lot, so what we're going to do is quickly jump into the specs that I got in my MacBook Pro. So first, it's the 13-inch without the touch bar. Second is the 2.3 gigahertz i5, and the reason for this is because I find sometimes i7 might be overkill. I know if you're like heavily graphics intensive or if you specifically need an i7 for a specific software, that's fine. But for me, I know I use Final Cut and Photoshop and other kind of professional softwares, but it's not heavily graphics intensive, so the i5 does a great job anyway. And also laptops come multi-threaded, so for the majority of people an i5 is going to do just fine. Now for the RAM, I got the 16 gigabyte option. I know you can get 8 gigs as standard, but to be honest with you, the 16 gigs is required, especially if you're using a lot of applications like myself. You know, I might have Final Cut Pro open, Photoshop open, and then a few other programs that I use on a daily basis. And I need to make sure that the laptop is doing its job and performing the best it can. So the 16 gigs option is definitely recommended. Quick note, 16 gigs is actually the maximum that you can get on the MacBook Pro 13-inch, even if you've got the touch bar model. What the hell, Apple? Lastly, for graphics, I just went with the standard Intel Iris Plus 640 graphics card that it comes with. And the reason for this is kind of going back on the i5, i7 debate, is that I didn't really need it for graphics. I know I use it for Final Cut Pro and for Photoshop, but I'm not doing AutoCAD, I'm not doing 3D work on it. So if you're somebody that's like me, that's using it for editing, Photoshop, general day-to-day use, and kind of anything in between, to be honest with you, I think the standard graphics would be perfect. Okay, so that's enough about what's in my MacBook Pro. What I'm going to do now is run through the pros and cons of what I found whilst using it. So the first pro would have to be the display. Now the display is running the same resolution as the screens last year, which would be 2560 by 1600. Now you could classify that, I suppose, as 1600p, but basically it's going to run full 1080p videos, really crisp, really sharp. It also will show 4K videos. It's going to be not true 4K, but it's still going to be super sharp. Now the two main differences would have to be the brightness. It goes all the way up to 500 nits, which is super bright, but also it does a new P3 color gamut, which allows you to show a lot more vibrant, a lot brighter colors than a standard RGB display. The second pro would have to be the new second generation butterfly keyboards, and you know all my thoughts about that already earlier in the video. The third pro would have to be the new trackpad. To put in perspective, it's about the same size as an iPhone 8 Plus screen, but it also has a new taptic engine in it. So when you press down on it, it feels like you're clicking, but you're not actually clicking. It's a taptic engine inside the MacBook Pro that shakes to give you that impression of a click. It's super cool. My fourth pro would have to be the speakers. Now, the reason why I say speakers is because in the previous model, it just had a speaker on one side and grills on both sides to give you kind of the impression that there were speakers on both sides. But now Apple have actually added speakers on both sides. So it gives you a lot more of an immersive experience when you're watching, you know, videos or listening to music. For the fifth and final pro, it'd have to be design. Apple are always at the forefront of design, and to be honest, this is no exception. With this MacBook Pro, it's refined, it's chiseled, but it also has that metal body, so it gives you a very premium feel, which is great. Moving on to the cons, and the first con is a big con, and that's the fact that there's no ports. Now, I don't mean no ports. There is ports, but there's no conventional ports. So it only uses USB-C. Now, it gives you two USB-Cs where basically one I use mainly for charging, and then the other one I use for an adapter. Now, the reason why I say you have to use an adapter is because when you're using USB-C, most of your accessories like hard drives or cameras or anything like that aren't going to be USB-C, you know, compatible out of the box. So what you need to do is get yourself an adapter. So the accessory that I got is a Satechi USB-C hub. Now you can plug this into your USB-C. It gives you another USB-C on this side for charging. It gives you an SD and micro SD card slot there and two USB slots there as well. It's pretty handy because a lot of the accessories, as I said, that you use right now won't be compatible with USB-C, and it's going to be a long time before they actually do catch up. So picking up something like this is very handy. What I'll do is leave a link in the description to it and you can check it out there. Because it's really hard to fault this MacBook Pro, it's a really short list of cons, but I would actually argue that the first con of no ports or, you know, adapters required is such a massive point that it could be a list of a lot more things, because people need to plug certain accessories into their laptop to work. And, you know, there's a lot of complaints in regards to using a USB-C hub for everything. So I know I'm only doing two cons, but the first one is so massive that I take that in heavy consideration when looking into investing in a MacBook Pro. So my second and last con would have to be no MagSafe charger. Now, if you're a MacBook Pro, MacBook Air user for a few years now, you would know that the MacBooks usually use a MagSafe charger, which is basically a magnetic charger that would pop out if you accidentally tripped over the cable. Now, Apple has actually removed that because they're opting in for the USB-C for charging, data transfer, and everything in between. So the fact that they took that out is kind of a big con for me as well, because it actually was a great accessory and it was used very well, but I suppose they couldn't really integrate it because they're using the USB-C now, but that has to be the last of my very short con list. So that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I have to say, overall, I'm really enjoying using the new MacBook Pro 13-inch. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. Also, if you own a MacBook Pro and you want to leave your own pros and cons, do that in the comment section as well. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button and make sure to stay tuned for new videos.